All right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have Zach Burau on with me today. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast or newsletter. Not really sure what to call this, but the
Yeah,
Three Ideas on Sunday podcast. But yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
of course. Yeah, happy to come on. Glad we got to meet on Twitter and jump into this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, can you give me a background? So my understanding, right, is you're the owner of axe.studio. It sounds like you also have another venture, Flyline.io. Maybe you run a dev shop, and then it looks like you had a company before Flyline as well. So, could you jump into, I guess, your story and what you do?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, out of school, I was computer science. Played college tennis, and then kind of stumbled into like the travel space. And my original company was like kind of a consumer flight booking app, and obviously, consumers not great. But so that kind of morphed into Flyline. And so
Yeah.
basically, I've been doing Flyline. I used to live in Dallas and moved up to New York. And Flyline, it's a flight data company. So we sell data to airports and travel tech companies. Super specialized, super niche, but it's not going to be a company that does like $20 million a year or something crazy like that. But it's got good monthly recurring revenue. Right now, it does around for the airport side of the business, it does around like 7 to 8K a month.
Okay.
And then for the just kind of overall business side, it does around like 15 to 20K a month. And so
Awesome.
that's just, it's me. And then I have like the same team that's part of Axe, right? So like,
Hmm.
there's not really a lot of technical work. It's just sales and maintenance. So basically last year I took that team from Flyline, moved them over to Axe, and then
Hmm.
started kind of building side projects, things like that. And then that kind of morphed into the games. So that's kind of like how it's happened. So kind of stumbled into it, but it's been good. I mean, it's like I have a good team, team of around,
Yeah.
10 guys and 8 to 10 guys. And yeah, it was good. I had to reuse them basically.
Yeah, totally. So I want to jump into so with Flyline, how do you handle sales for that, right? So are they mainly devs on your team, mainly sales guys? What does your team look like?
Yeah. So the team is basically devs. I do the sales.
Hmm.
It's very like the travel space. The travel tech company is a little different. You can kind of do the like original like LinkedIn reach out, kind of like schedule
Hmm.
a Calendly, kind of that whole thing. But with the airports, which I think is actually a pretty big business that people kind of sleep on, that like you need to go to the conferences. You need to I've reached out to every airport in North America, and I have like two reach back out to me, and two of those ended up being customers. But like it kind of sucks. So like you have to go to the conferences. You have to have industry expertise. So that's kind of what I'm trying to. And so I've had to go to the airports or kind of do that part of it. So that's not super
Hmm.
scalable. But yeah, so I'm the sales guy. And I with Flyline, I kind of like where it's at. I don't know how much like room there is to grow. So it's kind of it is like a great indie kind of like, it's an amazing indie project, but that's kind of
Yeah.
what I see it'll be at.
Yeah, totally. So you're selling flight data to them. So who exactly like are you targeting? Who's buying this? And
Yes.
why are they buying it?
So it's an API platform. So like think Plaid, but
Okay.
for airports, right? And so essentially, if you ever see like if your flight, like what the baggage allowance is, or if there's drinks on the flight, or what the seat pitch is, there's companies that
Hmm.
provide that, but we provide it as well. We provide flight schedules, which is the big thing the airports like. So if you ever see if your
Ah.
flight's delayed or on time, provide that data to smaller airports. Like never going to work with like JFK or LaGuardia, but
Hmm.
like if you ever watch The Office, like Scranton, PA is like a perfect airport.
Yeah.
Like they have like a 2 million passengers a year or 1 million passengers a year, really small, and that's kind of our niche right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. Uh-oh, I think I may have lost you there.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep. We're back.
Okay, cool. All right, cool.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. So I was actually under the assumption that it was more like flight patterns and whatnot. Like you see that kid on Twitter, right? That started
Yeah,
tracking Elon, right? So that's like what I had in my mind a little bit.
it's similar. So he's doing kind of the same thing. He's doing it for private jets. We just like basically track for commercial flights, and it's just like
Okay.
we plug into how many flights are coming into Lehigh Valley Airport, what the arrival time is if it's delayed, and then they display that on their boards at the airport.
Okay, very
Yeah,
cool. And so it looks like Wander Drift or
yeah,
Wander
Wander
Rift
Rift.
was
Yeah,
that was your company before?
yeah. So that was like I said, that was like a consumer flight booking platform. It was a membership model for flights,
Hmm.
and not knowing travel super well, it. We had a couple customers, super expensive. It was like $500 a month for 5 flights.
Okay.
Um, it was good for me. It failed. I mean, I'll be transparent,
Hey,
but it was like I was like, this isn't working. And then I kind of found like, oh, there's a niche market for flight data, and I've spent the last year and a half kind of trying to figure out how to get this flight data.
hmm.
Someone might need this, so that it kind of sucked to fail at it, but
Totally.
it morphed into like what I'm doing now. Great lessons too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you'd probably say, right? Like if you didn't do that, there's no way you would have started Flyline, right? So
Yeah.
you
No
you
way.
sort of found that niche, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet, sweet. And so it looks like now, so you started Axe Studio, right? Or did you buy or acquire Axe Studio? How did that come to be?
So Flyline was operating. Not a lot of once we built out the API platform, there's little maintenance here and there, and we have to kind of manage
Hmm.
the customers. But for the most part, there's no technical build out. So over basically while I was building Wanderift and Flyline, I kind of was able to put together a really good internal team. I wrote a lot of the kind of initial code for like the integrations for Flyline, but then I just didn't want to do it as much.
Sure.
Basically, I had this great team of guys, and I was like, all right, I don't want to lose that. So started taking
Hmm.
on some contracting just from people I know and referrals, and then contracting's great, but it kind of sucks.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Kind of stumbled into like the indie hackers kind of community. I was like, oh yeah, like this makes sense. I kind of come from like the traditional I understand like the hard money lending stuff, and so
Okay.
I'm like, okay, like monthly reoccurring revenue in tech, like that makes sense. I get it. So I started building a few like small side projects with my internal team, and
Hmm.
sold a few of those, like not for a lot, just like a couple $1,000 on side projectors and stuff like that, and then started basically getting into the games, essentially.
Okay, sweet. And so I mean honestly, like it seems like you're kind of living like the goal of like every indie hacker, right? Like you got your team, you have monthly recurring revenue, like enough that you're not like ramen profitable anymore, right? So I'd say you've like achieved that. My question is like when did you decide to get a team? Is this the original team from Wander Rift? Like how did
And
you go about getting that team?
yeah, so it's really from when basically I pivoted from like Wanderer to Flyline. And
Hmm.
so started out with I started building, and then I'm like, I need help. Our first customer was a big corporate booking company. Actually, the contract
Hmm.
ended up falling through, but like they were basically what moved me from Wanderer to Flyline was a big corporate booking platform. They handle travel for Tesla, Google. They were like, hey, could you build this? And I was like, yeah, like I'm going to move from this Wanderer thing to where the money is. And
Yeah,
so
totally.
I started building that, and I needed help. And I'm like, because basically I needed to do, long story short, I needed to do airline integrations. And those are,
Okay.
it's a pain in the ass. So my first guy, and I hate to say this, my first guy I got from Upwork. And so like I
I
kind of,
mean,
and so, but,
yeah.
so we started working just him and I for like about a month, and things were great. It was just kind of really great experience. I was like, hey, I need someone else. I don't like using Upwork. I don't like using freelance or anything like that. Do you have a friend? Do you have anyone you know? And he was like, yeah, I got a guy. I got a guy that would be great. He wants to come on. And so basically, the entire team is built off referrals. So
Okay.
I don't like to use those platforms. I just like to work off referrals. So that's
Hmm.
kind of how the team has been built slowly over time, and it's purely based on like need. And then I like that. I like the team. It's a great team of guys, and so I basically like if I don't have work, it's like, hey, let's take a contracting job or let's do a side project to basically keep everyone together.
Yeah, totally. I'm assuming these are devs in other countries, right? Not in the US.
So half are in Canada, and then
Okay.
half are in China. Yeah.
Okay, got you. So do you have them on like a salary, or is it more of like, hey, when I need you, like, are they doing other jobs as well, or is this is their
They're,
full-time gig?
yes, like we have enough contracting stuff and like the games as well, where like, yeah, they're full time. Everyone gets paid every 2 weeks. They're not like kind of a salary, but it's not like it's hourly, but like they know they're going to get
Hmm.
paid every 2 weeks and they know that they're going to work a little more than 40 hours a week.
Totally. Do you ever stress about making that payroll? Is that ever like a stressor for you?
Not, not really. Not within the last year because like
Okay.
the monthly reoccurring revenue has been good. So
Mhm.
like that's I know like I know what I'm gonna make each month, and I know
Yeah.
like I'll still make like because for it to be a real business, like I pay myself something. It's basically nothing, and then at the that I
Yeah.
basically work like at the end of the year, whatever's left, I'll just take I'll say okay, I'll take a portion of that because I want to have
Hmm.
that reserve each month. Like you said, like if there is a like an oh shit kind of moment. Never
Totally.
had that, luckily. Yeah, probably will happen, but yeah, like I as of now, no, just because of the monthly recurring revenue is nice to where it just I kind of know what I'm going to pay out.
Yeah, totally. So obviously, I mean, I would consider you like fully reach that like success of indie hacker, right? What's like your biggest piece of advice for people that want to go that indie hacker route, right? Like I think the big goal there, right, is to get enough MRR or monthly recurring revenue to where you can live off of it and you can keep building it and you can go fully independent.
Yeah, so I definitely say like the multiple revenue streams. So like I've got Flyline, Axe has contracting, and then right now outside of the games, we have two side projects that kick off solid monthly reoccurring revenue to the point where like it basically just covers cost for the
Hmm.
team. And so
Yeah.
that, like you said, like I can kind of you get a lot more optionality when you're not like worrying like, oh, I need to get this contract or things like that. So, kind of like you gotta get to the point where like you have that stable MRR to where you can like
Hmm.
make where you can just like wake up in the morning and just be like, shop for deals or, like kind of if a new opportunity comes, you have the cash to go deploy and like kind of test stuff out. That's how I got into
Yeah.
the gaming stuff. But I would say I wouldn't really say I'm the typical or the best or the kind of the more successful indie actor just because a decent amount, even though I have that MRR from those two projects in Axe and Flyline, I do take a decent amount of contracting, and I like
Hmm.
it's good, but like the money's good, but it's I would kind of caution indie hackers towards like away from you have to do it for the money, but
Yeah.
the contracting's tough. It like it takes kind of takes time away from you have to do it, but it takes time away from some of the projects that you want to because at the end of the day, the goal is everything to be your internal projects and everything's kind of growing that way.
Yeah, totally. And how do you go about getting those contracting roles, right? Are those like mainly referrals?
Yeah, so I do all off referrals. That's basically how I do it. I don't like I said, I don't do any like the job sites or anything like that. And I kind of take them as they come. I've been really lucky. Family, friends will, people, hey, can you do this or so
Yeah.
I've been lucky with that. And then just a few other referrals as well. A few people, I've done a few jobs for like people that have posted like indie hackers. I did like two on those,
Hmm.
but mostly just referrals. Yeah.
Gotcha. How long have you been doing this? And when I say doing this, I mean like starting your own companies, right? And going fully off that.
So I started Wanderift right after school. Obviously, that
Okay.
made basically no money, but that was kind of the first one. Flyline for the first basically year and a half, basically made no money, and then going into COVID, that's when I kind of got that bigger contract, the one that eventually fell through, but led me to Flyline. But basically within this from May of last year, is when I started basically getting sales from Flyline, getting contracting jobs, and then kind of starting to basically build things up. So kind of the last, I don't know, 15 months.
Okay. And how old are you?
I'm 24, yeah.
24, dude, you're crushing it. Crushing it for 24.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you think there's any part of you, I mean, you're only 24, right? So you got plenty of years. Do you think there's any part of you that is going to eventually go down that route of, hey, let's try to raise a bunch of money and go for that big, home run?
I've thought about that. I've actually been thinking about that like a lot lately. And I think like today, like things have changed. I think you can like do a home run without raising money. I mean, like, especially like you've got, your own cash to like deploy for opportunities and stuff like that. But I don't think you need to raise money anymore just because, I mean, it's different if you're technical, right? I guess that's different, but like, in terms of like marketing, like it's, you can build a big audience. That's what I'm trying to do on Twitter. But I mean, like I've thought about it. I don't think nowadays you need to raise a bunch of money, but I'm kind of looking like to see what's next and kind of stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's an interesting thought, right? Because it's like, when you're young, like you could take a big shot like that. And even if you failed, like it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've thought about it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So what, like of all your projects right now, like what are you most excited about, like for the future? And also like every day you wake up, like what are you most excited to work on?
Yeah, so I like these games. They're super. Have you ever listened to the My First Million pod?
I'm a huge fan. Sean Purry followed me on Twitter yesterday, and it was like the biggest fan moment I've ever had. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So Sam Parr I live in New York, so Sam Parr had a thing in New York like 2 weeks ago, and so me and my buddies went to it. I didn't meet him, but
I saw that.
Yeah, so that was cool. But so I was listening to one of their pods. I don't know if you remember this one. They were talking about like Sudoku.com, chess.com.
Yeah.
So I heard that, and I was like, oh shit, like
I need a piece of that.
I'll do it. So I started finding these games, and I found a game called Gamoku, like Japanese game or whatever. And the guy that owned the domain was the kayak founder. So
really?
I was like, like I'm in travel. I'll shoot him an email, be like, hey, I'll buy this off you. And I'm thinking he's gonna like say like it's gonna be 100K because it's like a high level keyword, I guess. And he's like, yeah. I was like, hey, you're a legend. Like I love what you did. And he's like, give me $1,000. And so I was like, okay, like cool. Like I'll take
done.
it. Yeah. And I was like, well, maybe I can like, meet him and hang out with him. So I built the Gamoku site. And then like last week I took a train up to Boston. I emailed him like, hey, I'll be in Boston. Can we meet? Like I just finished the site. And he's like, yeah. So like I got to hang out with him. But
that's sick.
The games I think are cool because like I bought a site called Pente, 50,000 registered users. Around 20 to 30 people are on the site at any given time playing a game. So I think that like the game portfolio, it's stable monthly recurring revenue. These people, if they find a site they like, they come back every day and they stay for like 10 years. So like, it's super. So I like, it's a boring business. It's kind of stupid, but I kind of like the game portfolio stuff. I think that's kind of a interesting market. I like that.
Yeah, it's sweet. And I'm sure you listened to that Darmesh podcast they did, right? Where he said he flipped on ads and it was like 90K monthly recurring, right? And it's like, someone would work their whole life to build a business like that. And he just did it in like 10 minutes. It's nuts.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think that stuff's interesting. I really and you tweet about this, which I kind of like. I like following you because you talk about like basically businesses that like people sleep on. Like nobody thinks about like the site I bought, pente.org, like the guy hadn't had it monetized. He had 50,000 registered users. The forums, people like love the site. Like that's a really good business that hasn't been started yet. Basically, it's just basically a side project for this guy. And so I like these kind of small side, like, businesses that people don't talk about. Everyone talks about crypto or whatever, but there's a big market out there. There's a lot of stuff to do, kind of trying to find those. I like that.
Yeah, totally. And I actually checked out axe.studio. I went through some of the games. How exactly are you monetizing it? Because I didn't see any ads right off the bat.
Yeah, so the solitaire one launched at like couple weeks ago or whatever. That one, I'm waiting for like basically Google to index it and kind of like they already kind of have, but starting to rank for Google. I wrote a bunch of content for the SEO purposes. And so there's no point in like monetizing it at this point, just because there's no, I mean, we get, I don't know, probably like 30 people a day to the site, like 40 people a day. So it's not crazy. Gamoku is at like, there are ads on it, and it is kind of generating revenue. So for each site, I basically hire someone in the community that like is like for Gamoku, I have the world champion Gamoku player like on Axes. I pay him, and he like basically does all the marketing and promotion. So we do live streams, just started doing that. And so that does around like, I think it gets like 2,700 visitors like a week or whatever, something like that, or 3,000 visitors a week. So that one does pretty well. And that should start generating decent revenue in the next like couple weeks. Like, and when I mean decent, I mean probably more than like a few $100 just to start. And then Pente does,
that's the one you built from scratch, right? So the Gamoku completely from scratch.
Yeah, Gamoku and Solitaire from scratch. And then Pente I bought. And then that one does around like $1,300 a month with the ads. And the ads aren't on every page. I'm going to, but I kind of, with this user base is like, I tried to push out an update, a really nice, clean update, and they like ripped me to shreds.
Really?
They're like, don't change the site. Like, this is terrible. It was like really nice. It kind of hurt my feelings. But so like they're super temperamental. So I'm kind of like easing them in to the, to like that basically like monetizing them. So
And was that one monetized when you bought it, or was it just users?
Not really. He had the previous guy, so full transparency, I bought it for $8,000, that site. And so the guy before had like a premium, it was like $2.99 a month or €2.99 a month or whatever. And that actually, outside of ads, so I still collect from that, and that does like $90 a month or whatever in premium upgrades. So it's not great, but it's not bad. So that site kind of, he did monetize a little bit, but not to kind of the point I'm going to.
Gotcha. Wait, so did you say it's doing $1,300 a month now, plus that 90 in upgrades?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. And you bought it for $8,000, so that seems like a pretty good acquire.
So I bought it for $8,000. Yeah. So keep in mind though, that's not. I bought it for $8,000, and then in terms of team costs to do that update, which I'll push out eventually, once I take their feedback and stuff. But that one probably sunk all in cost, probably like 15K.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still, I mean,
that's
it's a year and you got your cash back.
Yeah. It's a good return and I think it'll keep going up. I mean, like with the ads on every page, I'm finding a new ad provider as well. I'm thinking about, I don't know if you've heard of AdThrive.
I have.
So
there's certain minimums you have to hit, right? With like page views and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. So 100K a month. So like Pente meets that. Gamoku won't right now. Solitaire won't. But the Pente site will meet that. I think we'll do about 200 and something thousand page views.
Gotcha.
So we'll meet that, which will be cool.
Sweet. Yeah, those do sound exciting, right? And they're like games. I mean, even if you call them boring, but like, I mean, to most people, I think that would be like, oh, I run gaming sites. Like I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's fun. It is interesting. And it's cool. It is cool to like, I feel like the biggest thing for like indie hackers is like getting past that phase of like, I'm building for basically me, like 0 people, like no one's using this. And then once you get to like, oh shit, there's like 30 people at any given time talking on forums and playing this game that like I built, then you're like, oh, this is like, oh, it's on. Like, this is sweet.
Yeah.
Like I'll build more features. So I think like getting from that phase, that first like, start to like that is like tough. Like, I've been through it with a bunch of projects. It sucks.
Totally, right? It's like all the manual stuff, right? It's like outreach, like, hey, like, please play my game. Like, I mean, I haven't built a game, but I assume, I'm building like a small SaaS tool, right? It's the same thing. It's all manual work. Like, onboarding calls for a $10 a month type product. It's like,
and you're like banging your head against the wall. You're like, what the hell? Like, what am I doing? Like, this sucks. But,
exactly.
But if you can get it to like that, like, oh, I've got like, I had 100 people sign up for my SaaS tool this week, and it's like, you didn't have to really do anything. Like, that's what you're going for. Like, kind of all the work, you're like front loading it. all the work you did day one to like 100 is basically repaid over the next like, year if it kind of goes well.
Totally. It's like the snowball effect, right? It's like compound interest, just all of
Yeah.
your work up front and then compounds over time. Well, sweet. I want to get into the business idea, right? So if you read through my newsletter at all, I like to put out a business idea every week, just like kind of a half-baked idea, and then just like how you would do it, how you acquire customers, what your customers are. And then, even like revenue models, I like to put like, hey, if you just got, 10 customers at this, you make this a month.
Yeah. So, do you want me to jump into my idea?
Yeah. So any business idea, obviously that you're not working on right now, or just like an industry that you're excited for, that like, if you had some extra time, it's just like, hey, I see an opportunity here. This would actually be kind of fun to build.
Yeah, I've gotten really interested, and I feel like kind of the indie hacker community kind of doesn't really think about this as much, but like I feel like it's like MRR or venture, and like venture is like bad, and MRR is like king. And I feel like there's this middle ground where it's like private equity. And like I think like kind of what I'm doing with the games is rolling up the games, and then I want to sell it to a PE firm. Like I want to get 50, 100 games. And so I see the same thing you could do with like basically mom and pop, and they talked about this on the MFM podcast, but like some guys doing it with pool businesses, like mom and pop, pool businesses. I like pest control because my parents just bought a place in Florida. And so they're like moving in, and I'm like sitting there visiting them, and I see these pest control guys coming up, and they're like, hey, our thing is $500 a month or whatever. We do your house. And so I was like talking to the guy, and I'm like, hey, like, tell me about your business. Like, it's this like, kind of older guy. And he's like, yeah, my son works for me. My wife does the phones. Same thing as like what they were talking about in MFM with these pool cleaning businesses. He's like, we do north of like, $300,000 a year, $400,000 a year. It's just me, my son, and my wife, and I'm like, well, are you going to like sell it? Like, you could get like a 2x multiple, kind of, I wonder what's your EBITDA, like I'm talking to this guy's like, yeah, my son might take it, but if he doesn't, I think we'll just close it down. And so I feel like buying these like pest control businesses, similar to like the pool cleaning, you buy like, 10 of them, you put in the same systems, you give, the family a really good multiple, maybe you put the kid in charge and pay him a good salary. And then, you basically you can build a massive portfolio of these pest control businesses, roll them up and sell them to a PE firm. Like, I kind of see, I forget who it was. I wanted to give credit to him, but he, guy they talked about in MFM, and he was like, there's going to be this huge wave of like baby boomer businesses that like are boring. No one wants to take over, but they do well. And like, they need an owner. It's just going to like, it's going to dissolve. So the pest control thing would be cool. Like that, I think like, I think that would be a boring business. You're not going to have to like compete with like venture capital to get in. You're going to get good deals. Like maybe you're paying like a 2 multiple compared to like, most businesses you're having to pay like a 6x or 7x multiple or even higher, especially now on microacquire, it's much higher. So yeah, I mean, like that's where I see like a big market.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's a thing on Twitter, right? Like I don't hear people or any of my friends talking about it, right? But it seems like everyone on Twitter is talking about how we're having this mass exodus, right? By 2030, that all of these boomer businesses are going to trade hands. So yeah, I mean, I think it's an awesome opportunity. I think all the time, like, is this what I should just like drop everything and do? But I do think pest control is super interesting, right? And I actually think that pest control is really good for someone that's like a salesperson, right?
Yep.
Because I don't know a ton about pest control, right? But my understanding, right, is a lot of the time these big conglomerate pest control organizations, right? They'll hire college kids over the summer, right? And some of these college kids, you hear like the success stories of making like, $100K in one summer. But you basically just train up all your leaders for the org like during that summer. And it's almost, I mean, it seems a little like a MLM, like in some cases, right?
Yeah.
So where they're like, hey, like come join us, you'll become financially free. But like I think there's, a lot of money to be made there, right? And like if you're a sales guy, right, you can train other sales guys and just have a bunch of killers out there. I think, yeah, I like that idea a
Well, I'm
lot.
like looking at like, my parents moved into this like, community type thing. You've probably seen them in Florida, and there's like
Hmm.
900 houses in this thing. And it's
Yeah.
like this guy is like going door to door. He's probably going to be making way more than like I guess I was talking. He's like, yeah, we just got this contract for this new development, and so he's like, I'm going door to door trying to get people on. And I'm like, dude, you're going to make way more than like 300K, 400K like a year in this. Like this thing's gonna be huge. And so
Yeah.
like yeah, you just see like, and everyone's moving to Florida. You see all these houses and these big developments. Like I feel like it's a good market to just buy these businesses, put in good systems, put in good sales, like, get some college kid who's a killer and like, who's
Hmm.
like, just going to get after it and, kind of just build out a pest control empire. I mean, there's big pest control companies, but like there's these small mom and pops that are basically the same as like an indie hacker guy that's doing 6 to 10K a month on the
Yeah.
internet. It's just, a different type of business.
Yeah, totally. And I'm here in North Carolina, right? So we
Oh,
have
okay,
pests
sweet.
and we need
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So I mean, I moved from Boston, right, to here, where there's different type of pests, right? We have cockroaches here, which are gnarly, and I hate seeing them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally think there's a need for that. So like, if you were gonna acquire something like this, I'm just thinking numbers here, right? So let's say a pest control, and maybe this is way off. Let's say they're doing like 500K a year, right, in top line revenue, and they're going to sell it a 2x. So you're going to buy $1 million business, right? You can use an SBA loan. So
Yeah.
let's say you're probably going to have to get a hold of, let's say, 150 to 200K, right?
So I would do it differently. So, and
Hmm.
I mean, it also depends on like, who but I would take private money. And so like,
Hmm.
I would look at it. So like, let's say you're going to acquire the business for, you said $1 million, round numbers, right? And let's say, monthly reoccurring revenue outside of like extra stuff they have, let's just say round numbers, they're doing 20K a month,
Hmm.
20K a month. So, I mean, I like doing it. You could just get a hard money loan from like, a private investor or a private lender and pay them, I mean, I don't know, 7 to 10%, right? I mean, like that would be
Hmm.
great for like, for a hard money loan. From what I've seen out there, it's probably around 7 to 10%. You probably have to pay a little more. And
Yep.
if the monthly reoccurring revenue is there, I would just raise my rates. So, if you're charging, you know, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's just say you're charging $100 a
Yeah.
month
Yeah.
for, you raise it to 120 or 140 or whatever. That's not going to cover the whole. But I mean, I think like, that's what I would do is I would go in, I would take a hard money loan. I'd pay 7 to 10%. I'd raise my rates and I'd use that monthly reoccurring revenue to help pay off the interest and pay off the loan. That's what I would do. I wouldn't really, I mean, SBA is great, but like I would probably take a hard money loan, try to put in whatever I can and do it that way.
Yeah. So you wouldn't even go like the SBA
No, I
loan,
mean,
right? You just try to.
and it I mean, like, I, kind of would have access to get like a hard money loan or something like that. That's what
Hmm.
I'd look to do with the game. So, I mean, I guess if you don't have access to that, that's tough. But at the same time, I feel like it would be, if I'm a private investor, I would much rather invest in an existing business that has legitimate MRR than on some angel investment. Like, you know what I mean? So I guess, it'd be a lot easier to raise on that. Say, hey, I'm going to buy these pest control businesses. I'm going to pay interest, at day one because we have reoccurring revenue. We're going to get it for 2x multiple. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally, right. And you said raise, but you could even or raise the prices, right, to pay off that percentage. But I think even like we were just talking about, right, like you get a sales guy in there. You if you're a sales guy yourself, right, like
Yeah.
I think a lot of these boomer businesses, right, they're not like hardcore out there trying to get new customers. They're just like, no, we have like a nice customer base, like we're happy.
Yeah, and that's good for them. I mean, like, they can, if it's 3 people on staff or 4 people, and they're, doing what they're content with, they pay themselves a good salary, they go to work every day, they have nothing to worry about. They're probably 50, 60. Like, they don't want to grind and like, grow and exit. Like, that's just not what they want. So,
Yeah,
good opportunity for someone to come in and buy it and finance it and kind of, go down that route.
yeah, totally. So last question here. If you had to, let's put it into, 4 or 5 like actionable steps, right? So like first one, probably just need to go talk to a bunch of people, right? Either
Yeah.
finding it or lining up capital.
Yeah, so the first step would be, and I do this with the games when I look to buy a game, I don't go on MicroAcquire, I don't go on any kind of listing sites. I look for the deals that like people aren't looking to sell, or they don't know there's an opportunity to sell. So I'd go down, visit my parents, stay with my parents, and then I basically go to their, kind of headquarters or wherever they're based and just say, hey, are you looking to sell? Are you looking to walk away? What are you looking to do? So I would go out and look for the people that aren't looking to sell. You're probably going to have to talk to 40, 50, I don't know. You're going to have to cast a huge net just from what I see on the gaming side. Yeah. You're going to get a bunch of people that say, no, I'm going to give it to my kid, or no, I'm going to move on. You'll probably get the first one. And so the first step would be get the first business, buy the first one. And there's a bunch of steps in there. But if you're looking at it on a big stage, I find the first one. I try to finance it. I wouldn't put all my cash into it. And then so that'd be step one, right? So find it, finance it. Second one would be operating it. Like your point, the first thing I would do is raise my rates by however much on all the current employees. Third thing probably would be, included in that would probably be get a salesperson on staff, right? Actual staff. And then I don't know. I mean, are you saying just one, or are you saying just scale it out?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one's the biggest thing, right? Because once you have some cash flow coming in, once you have all that figured out, right? That's when I think it's easier to scale. And
you'd have to do one for a year. You'd have to do one for a year and know the business super well.
Yeah, totally. And I think once you're in it too, right? You get to know all of your competitors, who owns them, things like that, right? And I would imagine, right? So in that first step, when you're going out and you talk to 40, 50 people, right? A lot of them in the back of their mind are thinking okay, well, is my son or is my daughter going to take over this business? And they might not want to retire for another 3, 4, 5 years, right? So probably going to have a lot of that and a lot of follow-up. But once you're in the game, I imagine that's when the deal flow just starts coming in when, we approach 2030 and exodus starts happening.
I mean, I would even I would kind of approach it to these people hey, we'll keep your kids on and make them the operators. And we're basically at that point the PE firm. We're financing the deal, the acquisition, pay the operator very well. The kid probably knows the business. It knows the business better than we would. And, kind of have them grow into that operator role, right? And they have some ownership because, maybe you give them some ownership or whatever in the business after the acquisition at some level. So everyone's kind of aligned, but I would kind of try to keep the parent or the kid, the owner, involved in the mom and pop business still.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I will wrap it at that. Anything you want to plug in here? I don't have a huge audience, but,
no,
anything you want to throw in here?
Just follow me on Twitter. Trying to build that audience, man. But follow you on Twitter first, man. I like these business ideas you're tweeting and you talk about. So it's like MFM, but it's more digestible because you put it into Twitter. I love MFM, but sometimes I can't listen to a podcast all day. So I like seeing the business ideas in the Twitter feed.
Totally, I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, this was a lot of fun, and thanks for joining me. I'll wrap it right here.
Sweet.